What if I told you that the city most people visit for its technology and its towers quietly invented the most consumed form of sushi on Earth? Not in a fancy restaurant, but at a street stall by a man who could not afford to wait for fish to ferment. What if I told you that a pork cutlet eaten by Japanese schoolchildren every day was born when a Ginza restaurant looked at French veal, looked at tempura, and combined them into something that belonged to neither country and to both at once? What if I told you that a conveyor belt carrying sushi around a counter was one man's answer to a labor shortage and became one of the most imitated food delivery systems in history? 10 dishes. One city that has been feeding people its own way for 400 years. Edomae sushi. Before 1824, sushi was not what you think it is. Sushi in the traditional sense, narazushi, was a preservation method. Fish was packed in salted rice and left to ferment for months, sometimes years. You ate the fish. You threw away the rice. It was not a meal. It was a method of survival. In the early 1800s, a chef named Hanaya Yohei was working the streets of Edo, the city that would become Tokyo. He had an idea. Instead of waiting for fermentation, he would take fresh fish from Tokyo Bay, that very morning's catch, and press it by hand onto a small mound of vinegared rice. Serve it immediately, on the street, for the price of a handful of sen. The fish came from Edomae, the bay in front of Edo. The style became Edomae sushi. What Hanaya Yohei created around 1824 at his stall near the Ryogoku Bridge was not a preservation technique. It was fast food. It was the fast food of the Edo working class, laborers, merchants, townspeople who needed to eat quickly and cheaply and well. There is a plaque in the Ryogoku district of Sumida today, marking the birthplace of Yohei Sushi. The nigiri sushi of that era was 2 to 3 times the size of today's version, roughly the size of a child's palm, meant to satisfy hungry workers, not to be arranged on a lacquered plate. The red vinegar used in the rice, made from fermented sake lees, gave the rice a deep, complex flavor that most modern sushi restaurants have abandoned. A handful of Tokyo restaurants still use it. Tonkatsu. It is 1995, the Meiji era. Japan has been open to the West for barely a generation. Rengate Restaurant opens in Ginza, a Western-style establishment in Tokyo's most fashionable district, serving European food to a clientele of foreigners and curious Japanese. On the menu, a French veal cutlet, côtelette de veau, coated in breadcrumbs, pan-fried in butter, served with demi-glace sauce and chateau carrots. Perfectly correct. Utterly wrong for Japan. The butter was too rich, the veal was too expensive and too pungent. The demi-glace was too heavy. Rengate's kitchen looked at the tempura stands next door, the light, hot oil frying tradition of the Edo period, and made a decision. They switched from pan frying to deep frying. They switched from veal to cheaper pork. They switched from fine breadcrumbs to fresh panko, large, airy Japanese breadcrumbs that create a lighter, crispier crust. They replaced the demi-glace with Worcestershire sauce. In 1899, the new dish appeared on the Rengate menu under the name pork cutlet. It was neither French nor Japanese. It was both. It was Tokyo's answer to the question of what to do with a foreign recipe when you live in a country with 1,200 years of frying tradition and a national preference for lighter flavors. The resulting dish, a thick pork loin, panko-crusted, deep-fried golden, pre-sliced with a knife so it can be eaten with chopsticks, served with shredded fresh cabbage, rice, miso soup, and a dark, sweet, savory sauce, became one of the most consumed foods in Japan. Rengate is still open in Ginza. It has been serving tonkatsu for 126 years. The recipe has been updated exactly once when they switched from imported Worcestershire to a blend of 2 types. Otherwise, it is unchanged. Ramen, Tokyo style. Ramen is not originally Japanese. It came from China, wheat noodles and broth, brought by Chinese immigrants and cooks to Japan in the late 19th century. It was called Shina soba, Chinese noodles, and was sold from street carts in Tokyo and Yokohama. What Tokyo did to ramen is what Tokyo does to most things. It refined it, intensified competition, and produced the world's most technically complex version. Tokyo-style ramen, shoyu ramen, is built on a clear, chicken-based broth seasoned with soy sauce. The broth is lighter and more delicate than the rich tonkatsu broth of Fukuoka or the miso broth of Sapporo. The noodles are thin, wavy, and slightly alkaline. The toppings are restrained: chashu pork, menma bamboo shoots, nori, a soft egg, thin slices of green onion. The bowl is designed to let the broth speak. After World War II, American wheat flooded Japan, and cheap flour made wheat noodles the most affordable food in the country. Ramen shops multiplied. The competition among Tokyo ramen shops, called ramen-ya, became one of the most intense food competitions in the world. Lines form before opening. Ratings are published monthly. Chefs spend years perfecting single elements of their broth. The Shin Yokohama Ramen Museum opened in 1994 and is entirely dedicated to ramen history. Gyudon beef bowl. In 1899, the same year Rengate put tonkatsu on the menu, a fish dealer named Aikichi Matsuda converted his stall in Tokyo's Nihonbashi fish market into a beef dish stand. He called it Yoshinoya. He sold gyudon, thinly sliced beef simmered in a sweet soy and mirin broth, piled over a bowl of white rice. Gyudon is the Tokyo fast food that predates Chipotle by 94 years and McDonald's Japan by 72. A complete, nutritious hot meal assembled in under 2 minutes from a single bowl. The beef is cooked in the broth until it absorbs the savory sweet sauce. The rice underneath catches the juices. You eat it alone, quickly, at a counter, then leave. Yoshinoya survived the 1923 earthquake, survived World War II, and survived the BSE crisis of 2004, when they had to remove beef from the menu for nearly 2 years and nearly went bankrupt. They survived all of it. Today, Yoshinoya operates over 1,200 locations in Japan and dozens more across Asia and the United States. Monjayaki. Every Japanese person knows the difference between okonomiyaki and monjayaki. Most people outside Japan do not know that monjayaki exists. Okonomiyaki is osaka. It is a firm, pancake-like savory cake made from cabbage, flour, eggs, and various fillings cooked on a griddle, finished with bonito flakes and sweet mayonnaise. It is portable. It is photogenic. It travels. Monjayaki is Tokyo. Specifically, it is Tsukishima, a neighborhood in Tokyo's Chuo ward that has been the Monjayaki capital of the city since the early 20th century. Monjaya Street in Tsukishima has over 70 Monjayaki restaurants on a single road. Monjayaki is made from a much thinner batter combining cabbage, dashi broth, flour, and Worcestershire sauce. It is cooked directly on a hot iron griddle at the table. The batter spreads across the iron, bubbling and sizzling, and slightly crisping at the edges while remaining loose and lava-like in the center. You scrape and eat it directly from the griddle with a small, flat spatula called a hera. It is messy. It is communal. It is the opposite of photogenic. Yakitori. Under every elevated train track in Tokyo, there is smoke. The smoke comes from yakitori stands, narrow stalls where skewers of chicken are grilled over charcoal, basted repeatedly with tare, a sweet soy-based sauce, and served to the salarymen who stop here every evening between the train and the commute home. Yakitori, which literally means grilled bird, developed in Tokyo in the Meiji era when chicken became widely available after centuries in which poultry consumption was discouraged by Buddhist dietary restrictions. The specific form of yakitori as it exists today, skewered, charcoal grilled, and basted with tare, took shape in the post-war period in the alleyways and stalls under Tokyo's elevated train tracks. These places, called yatai and yakitori-ya, served cheap food and cheap beer to workers who needed to decompress before going home. Yurakucho, directly under the elevated tracks between Yurakucho and Shimbashi stations in central Tokyo, is considered the spiritual home of Tokyo yakitori culture. Kaiseki, the formal multi-course Japanese meal, originated in Kyoto, not Tokyo. But Tokyo kaiseki is its own thing, and the distinction matters. Kyoto kaiseki is rooted in the tea ceremony and in the vegetarian shojin ryori of Buddhist temples. It is seasonal, restrained, and philosophical. The chef makes an argument about the season through the food. Tokyo kaiseki absorbed that tradition and expanded it, importing the finest ingredients from across Japan, including the seafood of Edomae that Kyoto could not access, the wagyu of the Kanto region, and the technical influence of French haute cuisine that entered Japan through Tokyo's Western-style restaurants. Conveyor belt sushi, also called kaiten sushi. In 1958, a man named Yoshiaki Shiraishi was running a sushi restaurant in Osaka, and he was trying to solve a simple but urgent problem. He did not have enough skilled sushi chefs to serve customers at the pace they needed. He needed a way to deliver sushi to customers without requiring a chef to hand a plate to each person. He visited the Asahi Brewery in Osaka and watched the conveyor belt that moved beer bottles through the bottling line. He went home and designed a small moat of water that circulated around the sushi counter, carrying small boats of sushi to waiting customers. He applied for a patent, received it, and opened the first kaiten sushi restaurant. The concept spread from Osaka to Tokyo, then across Japan and around the world. Today, there are over 5,000 kaiten sushi restaurants in Japan. Convenience store food, konbini. There is no single inventor and no founding date. Konbini are an entire category of food service. In Japan, convenience stores such as 7-Eleven, Lawson, and Family Mart are not like American convenience stores. They are not primarily places to buy cigarettes and lottery tickets. They are full food operations, serving freshly made onigiri, hot nikuman, steamed pork buns, prepared bento boxes, high-quality instant noodles, fresh sandwiches, and seasonal limited edition items that rotate monthly and generate lines when they appear. There are approximately 55,000 convenience stores in Japan. In Tokyo alone, there are approximately 9,000, which is one for every 150 people. They are open 24 hours. They are everywhere. The food is genuinely good in a way that no American convenience store food has ever been. Onigiri, a triangle of rice wrapped in nori and filled with salmon, tuna mayonnaise, pickled plum, or any of dozens of seasonal fillings, is the emblematic konbini food. It comes in a specific 3-part wrapper designed so that pulling tab 1, then tab 2, then tab 3 removes the wrapper while keeping the nori separated from the rice until the moment of eating, so the nori stays crisp. Tokyo as a food identity. Tokyo does not have a single iconic dish the way Naples has pizza or Philadelphia has the cheesesteak. It has everything. It has more of everything at higher quality than almost any other city on Earth. A street vendor invented the most consumed sushi style in 1824 because he could not afford to wait for fish to ferment. A Ginza restaurant invented tonkatsu in 1899 because it ran out of cooks and substituted cabbage. A fish dealer turned his stall into a beef bowl stand the same year and built a chain that has outlasted 2 world wars and a mad cow disease crisis. A neighborhood in Chuo Ward preserved a messy, unphotogenic batter dish that never went viral because Tokyo never needed it to go viral.